Escape from Zoomanity was always a book that was written based, of course, originally around my life, but the more I started to write the book, the bigger the idea started to become, and the more things I started to question. You see, up until that point, I had been through a major life destruction, which left me with absolutely zero. And that gave me time to think, it gave me time to go away, and I decided to eventually go and write this book. So I jumped on a plane over to California to stay at a friend's house that I'd actually met in the Amazon jungle of all places. I went to stay at her house, she left me there for as long as I wanted to be, and I began to write this book. And it began to raise lots of ideas in my head, and the main idea was, I'd already had 3 major businesses, I'd already had 4 children, I'd even had the ability to go and build my own house. But the question had been raised continually was, what had actually taken place in my life that led to this complete destruction? And as I began to write, I began to think about these different ideas. And one question kept coming up, which was, what if everything I had been taught in life so far was wrong? Well, not really wrong, because what I could be saying there is, my parents were wrong, my grandparents were wrong, or the teacher was wrong. And I don't really mean that. But what if everything I had been taught had just been taught from someone else, had been a repeated pattern that they'd repeated from a long chain of other people without ever questioning where the origin of this thing came from? So the real question that began to be raised was, what are these repeats that have been repeated to me and were repeated to my parents and repeated to their parents before and continually repeated all the way down the line? But more important, what was the origin of these repeats? And quite quickly, every time I started to trace things back, I got back to the point that the original idea or the original concept of some of the things that have been repeated to me, like go to school, work hard, get a job, build a career, be an entrepreneur, blah 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 blah, all these different things, all these ideas and concepts that have been continually fed to me through my life, which I am grateful to my parents for, and I'm grateful to the people who've taught me in my life for. But what if those things had just been simply repeated and passed on without the repeater actually thinking about the origin of where those things came from? That took me to the idea of the zoo, and it took me to the idea of Zoomanity / humanity. What if everything in a zoo, which is labelled as a wild animal, isn't actually a wild animal? So for example, you could take an elephant, and an elephant will live to say 70 years or more. An elephant in a day can also walk 50 miles, and during that 50-mile walk, they're continually looking for food. Of course, they will play, they will look for water, and they will have small baby elephants as well. I'm not sure what they're actually called. So all these things these elephants would do every day, it would exercise the muscle, it would exercise the eyes, exercise the ears, exercise the mind of the elephant, and of course an elephant was just being an elephant. That's what elephants are pre-programmed to do. They're pre-programmed to go out and be elephants. And the same for a cheetah. A cheetah is designed to chase its prey. It's designed to run up to 50, 60 and even 70 miles an hour and eventually captures its prey and devours the prey for its food. The cheetah is just simply being a cheetah. And that could be said for all animals. So when we go to the zoo, what do we actually see? Do we see wild animals? Do we take our children to see wild animals in the zoo? Of course we don't. These animals are not wild animals. They are passive, they are controlled, they are in lots of cases even drugged, they are boxed, caged, and they are no longer an elephant or a cheetah. They are a simple representation of what they used to be or what they should be. Why is that and how is that? Well, of course it's still an elephant in its physical form, it's still an elephant to look at, but the truth is, it doesn't do the things it would do in the wild. So hence it is no longer a wild elephant, it's just an elephant. The consequence of an elephant being in a zoo, of course, means it doesn't live as long, probably live to 30, 40 years. Gets all kinds of diseases, tooth decay, fruit rot and everything else, and of course animals also die of utter boredom. But the point is, the animals are brought into the zoo and they are given everything they need to survive. What does that mean? It means they're given foodstuffs, it means they're given shelter, it means they're given association, they're given the necessary things they need to survive. So the animals are no longer wild animals, they are just animals within the zoo. And that raised another question to me when I was writing the book Escape from Zoomanity. And the question was this: are we still humans, or have we become Zoomans? Are we fed through the system, through the feeds, through the media, through the controls, through the higher influences? Are we fed through these things so that we're given enough to survive, enough to associate, we're given homes and places and everything else, but everything we have in our life is controlled? The way we make our money is controlled. The way we eat our foods in the supermarkets box packed full of chemicals and everything else is controlled. So who's controlling who? Who's controlling you? And the whole principle of Escape from Zoomanity was an awakening for myself. They come to realise that I was actually being controlled by much greater influences, by influences from a long way away, a long time back, and these influences were designed to turn me into a Zooman, which was based on survival, which was based on existence. So the whole idea for the book Escape from Zoomanity, yes, it came on the back of a destruction, but it came on a point of awakening to some facts and some realities. And one of those facts and realities was that the Zooman could, if he wanted to, if he was compelled to, if he started to awaken, because not everybody with ears can hear, not everybody with eyes can see, not everybody with a mind can think. So we have a stopping point. My destruction was my stopping point, where I had to think, what has taken place? Hence I went to California, I sat down, I stayed there for 2 to 3 months, and I wrote this book, Escape from Zoomanity, which was all about an awakening process, tapping into different things, realizations, and the biggest realization of all, that almost everything I had been taught in my life through the schools, through the education system, even through my parents, although they weren't really aware that they were doing that, all those things that I'd been taught in my life were repeated. They were passed on by the repeaters. It was just pure repeatism with no real depth and no real thought about anything. So the one thing it taught me and other people in life to do is to question everything. If you feel unhappy with your life, if you feel unhappy with your direction, if you feel unhappy with the way your things are going in your life, you need to begin to question everything. Because I know, and you know, you can escape from Zoomanity. But of course, that will always begin with you.